Hey everybody, how's it going? Stephen Garney here, Team Canada, Team Most Awesome. We were going to take a look at this throttle handle today while I have it all the rest of this snorkel and everything all apart. I'm just going to put down a little microfiber cloth here just to have something to work on because I really don't like working on the carbon. I'm always afraid of marring it up and making it look all shitty and stuff, so I'm going to work on here instead. And so first thing I'm going to do is we'll take apart this handle so you guys can have a look at inside of it. I don't recommend taking this handle apart just to get the snorkel off, but I thought that I would take this handle apart to show you guys kind of how the inside of the handle works, as well as like how this is attached, the actual what do we call it, parachute cord, paracord, or whatever it's called. So let's start by taking this apart. I already took out the top and the bottom screws. They're a little bit longer, and they have a retainer nut on the back of it, so that there's the threaded insert, and then it will have a secondary nut and washer on the back, on the top and bottom, on the front. And I took those off already. All these are 2.5 millimeter Allen, so if you can just use an Allen key, or you can get an actual 2.5 bit and use that on a regular screwdriver. There's 3 different sizes here of these screws. I don't know if there's supposed to be 3 different sizes or 2, but I got one short one. I know that for a fact because I've had this apart before. So I figured I'd take this apart for you guys and kind of show you some stuff that can possibly go wrong over normal wear and tear with the handle, or even misuse too. So let's take this guy apart. There's 8, I believe, in total. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, the 8 nuts. Pardon me, 8 bolts in total. They're all 2.5 millimeter, and the rest of them are the same length. But you don't want to use those long ones in any of the other spots, because you will actually push through the handle. If you tighten it down, you'll wreck your handle. So let's start by just getting these 8 out here. So one of the problems, or one problem you could have with your board that actually is the handle, it's the fault of the handle. Here, I'll get this a little closer for you guys to see a little better. So if your board isn't starting, the electronic bilge isn't turning on, your board's not starting, you can't figure it out, and you take your moto key, your magnetic key there, and you actually touch it on your ECU. So you take the magnet and you put it and you touch it on your ECU, and your ECU does turn over and kick over. It's most likely a problem with the electrical inside your handle, and I'll show you what goes wrong in there. And that's usually from people not cleaning out their handle or spraying WD-40 in it, and over time the sediment and sand and all that kind of stuff builds up in it. Another thing that can happen is the magnet sensor right here. When people fall off, it gets pulled on, and it can actually snap the wires inside the handle. And I'll show you this right here in a quick second. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to get into that crack there, and you'll want to slowly pry it apart, not to be applying too much force on any part of the handle, because you don't want to break the plastic. It is plastic at the end of the day, and you just want to take it apart gently. If you see that there's a little bit of rubber seal here, just hold down the magnet side with one piece of plastic, and then slowly wiggle, and you should be able to separate that silicone. There we go. So here we have it. So inside your handle, you have the magnetic sensor, and when you put your key in, it connects magnetics inside here, and or draws the plate inside there, and it causes the negative and the positive lines to actually touch each other. Sends a little relay down to your ECU, telling it that that magnet's engaged. And then here is your throttle, and then that throttle works off of a brake line. It's actually built right into this piece of plastic, so you can't change out that rod. This one, you can tell all this black silicone is actually silicone that I put in there because I have repaired this handle before. I had somebody else using my board, and they fell off, and they pulled on the magnetic sensor part of the handle, and they actually broke the wiring in there. The wiring is not a very thick gauge. Here, I'll see if I can't get this out of here. The wiring is not a very thick gauge, and you can see some of it down there. And so over time, the casing from the salt water will become weaker and more brittle. And then from it traveling and banging around, and if you're on planes a lot, it gets cold and hot, and it'll freeze up, and then eventually the casing will actually crack. And over time, water gets in there. You can see how much riding I do. There's from the salt water, you get corrosion, and then over time, those electrical wires will corrode and snap. And so this happened to me. All my new handles now, I do solder a thicker wire in, and then I put all this silicone on. So a lot of this silicone is my silicone, and I do that just to kind of prevent it from happening. And before I'm going to go on a long trip, or if I'm going to go somewhere on the other side of the world and I don't have the right spare parts with me, or I don't plan on bringing them, I'll just take that handle apart really quick and I'll check it, and I'll lubricate it, and I'll make sure that everything's working properly. If you do put silicone in here in any way, shape, or form, make sure to keep it away from that line that goes into your throttle, because if you have any silicone on that line or any silicone inside that casing, it'll really make it a lot harder to pull your throttle, or even worse, it could possibly make your throttle stick, and you don't want to have your throttle force stuck open. And then make sure there's no silicone on any part of this actual throttle lever, because same kind of thing, the mechanics will make it stick, and you'll feel it, and it'll feel nasty, and you won't like it. So that's all it is. It's just 2 electrical wires into that sensor, and then the 1 cable coming up and in. And because this is all apart now, I'll pull that all through there to change out my my snorkel. I got a new snorkel here we've been working on to put in. It's just a little bit oversized. This snorkel's has a restriction because of damage from previous use, and then it was repaired, so it doesn't quite have the airflow that it should. And so the last thing we're going to look at here, while we have this all apart, is the actual paracord into the handle. It's actually just a knot, and then the knot is super glued. So that easily comes out of there. It's not anything special. There's no plastic capping or anything like that. So if you go like that, you take that apart. Inside here, because I got some silicone on there from when I redid it, you can't really see. I'll see if I can get that closer. You can't really see, but all that is a knot. There you go. And inside that, so it's just knotted and then super glued. And then once the handle's together and they have that set in its place, they pour super glue into the top of it to give it that smooth, rounded appearance. So I'm pretty sure how they do it. So the paracord's strong enough, and by putting the knot in it, that's what prevents it from coming out of the board. And then the super glue is simply for aesthetics and to make sure that knot doesn't come undone. So that's all it is. So we'll go and we'll change this out, and we'll switch it over for some green, and then we'll switch out the paracord from the front of the board through the snorkel, up through the retainers, and then to the handle. But that's a job for another day. Anyways, that's the inside of your handle. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. But really, it's pretty simple. And if you have a board and you're worried your handle might wear out prematurely or anything, you can take it apart and silicone it. but you kind of voided any warranty you have on your handle. And just if you do, make sure that you stay away from that throttle line, and watch that you don't get any on that side altogether, because you really don't want to be messing around with the actual throttle. Okay, Stephen Garner, have a good one. Bye.